Greetings, Benjamin J. from BENZTRAINZ with another in the series. Well, this is that new 999 that arrived, and did a video on replacing the main contactor. And that was really all that was wrong with this. Someone had dropped it, obviously. And when these things pop off, people are at a loss or how to put them back on again. And, of course, the spring was gone. So I just did a real quick solder job, cut a spring to fit it, and did a video on how to snap these things back into position. This is really simple to do. And most people will pass on a Marx engine if the contactor is missing because they think it's some big involved process to replace it. And it isn't, as long as you have the contactor. You can always find a spring. And if you don't have a spring, you can use a thin slice of sponge until you do get a spring. And all that spring does is it guarantees that this contactor has got some downforce on the center rail. And soldered into position, cut a spring to fit it, stuck it back on, and the engine was up and running. Now, I got this for 10 bucks, and as you see, it's not in perfect condition by any stretch of the imagination, but it is now running. So we're going to put this on the rail and see how it runs under a load. So I've got the same consist that I was using for the Lionel 1110. So drop this into position. Let me pull the camera off the tripod. This is going to be the engine's very first run. So it was a really simple repair, and I did have to replace one of the brushes. The brush itself was missing. The spring was there, but the brush itself was missing. So I cleaned the armature, cleaned the brushes, lubed it and tuned it. Just cursory, just really straightforward stuff that needed to be done before you even try to run it. And lubricated the motor. The motor's running really well. Ran it on the bench on that little power supply. So the E unit is working perfectly. And we'll take this around and see how it runs. So we're pulling 18 Marx cars, plastics cars. So let's see how this goes. Power is on. E unit works. Now, this is the first time this has been on the track. So give it a couple seconds. There we go. And usually what happens is you got to get it on the track and get it running, and things start to break loose. The oxide comes off the wheels, and the engine starts to run. Now, this is pulling 18 cars, currently at 50% power. So it's actually running quite well. So it's not perfect, it's far from it, but it's $10. And if you have the parts to fix it with, you can have this up and running in literally just a matter of minutes. And you saw how simple it was to replace that main contactor. And I might take one coil off of that spring, and won't know until it goes around a couple more times, gets all the oxide off the parts. And all I've done is replaced one brush. I replaced the main contactor and oiled it. That's it. That's all I've done to it so far. So we'll see how this runs over the next period of a few minutes. And if I have to make an adjustment to that contactor, I will. Very likely, once this is broken in and running again, it's going to run just fine. So it'll start in reverse. Let's take it around. There we go, picking up speed as it goes. Okay, there's 50% power. So all in all, this has been a very, very fun day. I got that Lionel 1110, and about, I don't know, half an hour later, the actual mail came by and brought this new 999. Like I said, the guy was asking $15 for it as a buy it now. and it was ready to expire, and no one had made an offer on it. And so I contacted him, and I just explained, look, the contactor's gone. You know, this thing is not going to run, no matter what else you say. It's not going to run. And then looking at the pictures, I told him that the bottom brush was missing as well. Spring was there, but the brush was gone. So I offered him $10 for it. He accepted it. It cost $8 to ship it. So here it is, a new 999. This is now, I think I have 35 of these now. And the 999s, of course, are one of the most common Marx engines you'll find. But this one needed some work. But if you have the parts to do this with, it doesn't matter what's actually wrong with it. If you can get it at a good price, buy it and fix it. And even if I couldn't get it running, which I was sure I could, but even if I couldn't get it running, it's worth more than $10 just in parts. So I took the chance, made the offer, $10. He accepted it. It just got here. It took me a grand total of probably 10 minutes to put that main contactor back on it. Replaced the bottom brush. The spring was already there. Rest of it was just a few drops of oil on the axle and on the armature output shaft and the armature bearing itself. And a new 999 that is up and running with a working E-unit. So E-unit goes backwards, E-unit goes forward. And the more I run this, the better it's going to run. So this has been sitting for years. There's 40% power. Let's take it up to 50% and see what we do. So, no problem with this at all. It is running absolutely perfectly. So, it's far from perfect, but it was cheap. And that's the neat thing about working on these old trains. And like I stressed, once you have a supply of parts, if you find an engine at a decent price, regardless of what it's missing, you can have it up and running in just a matter of a few minutes if you have the parts to do it with. So I had 3 contactors, went up to Ace Hardware, went through all their springs, found some springs that were light enough that I could just cut down, like I said, 3-4 coils to put under that contactor, snap it back into position, solder the wire to it, and you have a repaired 999. Now, as you can see, there's no major damage to it. It's absolutely filthy. But once this is cleaned up, and I will paint it with oil to rejuvenate the finish. And yes, it's got lots of play wear, and there's lots and lots of scuffs and scratches. The thing is, it was inexpensive. It's running, and it's pulling 18 Marx plastic cars. Really hard to beat that. It's complete. It has the front and rear trucks. It has the front lens. The motor is running absolutely perfectly, and it only took a few minutes to fix this. So as I always stress, don't overlook the junk. One key factor in doing this is you have to have a supply of parts. So if necessary, find an engine and sacrifice it to get the parts you need. Because the parts out of one of these engines, you can usually fix 4, 5, 6 more, just depending on what they are missing. But is it perfect? No, it is not. It's far from perfect. The thing is, it was inexpensive, and it's sitting here running. You simply cannot beat that. So I just wanted to do a quick video on this 999. Arrived today, $10 on eBay. Replaced the bottom brush and replaced the main contactor. And I have a new 999 to add to the collection. So I'll be running both of these the rest of the day. The 1110, this got here. And like I said, about a half hour later, this got here. So it was just like Christmas. Opening packages and pulling out new toys. And plus I had the fun of actually repairing this. This is an old engine. It's older than I am. So this is 70, 75 years old. It's been sitting for God only knows how long. But you can see it's actually covered with oxide. There's no real rust on it, but it hasn't been stored well. It's been stored very likely in a basement. Looks like perhaps a dry basement. It could have been in a closet. Usually don't get oxide if it's been stored in a closet. This usually comes from a basement with a relatively damp environment. So anyway, just doing a quick video Just wanted to do a quick video to see how this was going to run on the rail. This is the very first time I've run it. It's been here less than probably an hour and a half, if that. And you saw the repair. It took 10 minutes to repair it, and a new 999 on the rail pulling 18 cars. So as always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email. BENZTRAINZ@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for watching.